We'll get to episode 260 in just a moment, but first I want to ask for your support of iCantCU. Whenever you need to make a purchase at Amazon.com, please use my affiliate link by going to iCantCU.com/Amazon. That'll take you right to the Amazon.com homepage. Shop as you normally do. Check out as you normally do. It doesn't cost you anything more, and I may earn a small commission on your qualifying purchase. Again, that's iCantCU.com/Amazon. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it.
From Studio B in Swarthmore, this is the iCantCU podcast with David. It's like blind people for dummies.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 260 of iCantCU. My name is David, at David Benj on all the socials. Thanks for being here, and welcome into Studio B. Really glad you could join me for this episode, and as usual, I've got a few things to talk about. I'm going to lead off again, like I have for the last 3 or 4 episodes, by telling you about the NFB of Pennsylvania April raffle. Tickets are $5 each. You get a 3-digit number. If that number comes up anytime during the month of April, that's the 1st through the 30th, so you have 30 chances to win. If it comes up from Sunday to Friday, you win $50. If it comes up on a Saturday, you win $100. Now, what number? Where's it going to come from, you may ask? And it's going to be the same number that's drawn by the state lottery that evening. So the evening drawing of the Pennsylvania lottery, and the NFB of Pennsylvania is in no way whatsoever associated with the Pennsylvania lottery. Pennsylvania lottery and NFB of Pennsylvania, not related, not in the least. So if your number comes up, and if you have 1, 2, 3, it's got to come up 1, 2, 3. If 3, 2, 1 comes up, nope, you didn't win. So I want to thank Renee, who bought some tickets. I took a minute to get her numbers to her because Liz kind of fell asleep on the job because I wanted to get Renee. It's kind of hard to read. I'll send you an image if you do buy them, but it's kind of hard to see the numbers, and she didn't give me the actual numbers written out, so I couldn't get them to her. Seeing AI and Be My Eyes kind of read them, but it also read all the other information on there, so if you weren't paying attention, you kind of lost that. So to make sure I got the right numbers, I wanted Liz to send me the numbers, and she finally did. So it took me a couple extra days to get Renee so she could actually read her numbers. Unless she has someone sighted in her family, then they could have just read the image, I'm guessing. But thank you, Renee, and thank you, of course, Dan, who bought some tickets earlier, and Alex, who bought some tickets earlier. Now, I have to tell you a funny story, and I'll talk more about my travels over the last week in a couple of minutes. But we were coming home from State College from the Leadership Seminar. I think Summit sounds better, right? So we were coming home from that. And there was a group of us traveling from State College, Pennsylvania, where this seminar was, back to Philadelphia. And actually, there was more of us traveling from State College to Harrisburg. And then some people got other rides from Harrisburg. And then there were a few of us, 7 of us, I think, traveling back to Philadelphia. So we're in the bus station waiting because there's not a train that goes to State College. I don't get that, but there's not. So we're waiting on the bus, which was 45 minutes late. And again, I'll get into all of this in a minute. And Eugenio, who was my roommate and is also the treasurer of the Greater Philly chapter, says to someone in the group, I don't remember who, "You're going to buy some tickets from me, right?" And so he takes out the tickets. And Alana, Stacy's daughter, so I'm guessing it was Stacy that was going to buy the tickets, starts to read the numbers. And the first one that she read, was 894. And I said, "No way." And he said, "Yeah, that's it." And Alana said, yeah, I'm good. I said, "Double check that." She double checked it. She said 894. I said, "I want to buy that ticket." Now I've got probably about, I've got 50 or 60 tickets left. So please buy some. She double checked it. It was it. And I bought that ticket from Eugenio. Now, here was the problem. There's a group of blind people And we had to fill out the ticket because Eugenio has to be the one to turn it in because I gave him the money and I was going to send it in. Now, I could have sent it in on my own with the tickets that I'm going to send in, but he wants to make sure he got credit for it, and I get that. So we had to fill it out. Alana's 7, so she might have decent printing for a 7-year-old, and maybe what I printed on there was worse. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to try and print it. And that was the big issue with all of us because Stacy bought some tickets and Kosi bought some tickets. I'll tell you the story behind 894. When I was a kid, my dad bought 2 Chevys. One was a van, a passenger van, so he could take people from his market in Chester home. There was a big senior community close by. So the shuttle would be constantly running during the day, bringing people from there, getting their groceries. They'd all get in and get their groceries, and then somebody would take them home in that van. The last 3 numbers of that license plate was 893. At the same time, he bought a new station wagon, and my dad went through station wagons about every 2 years when I was a kid because he would load them up. It was the SUV of the day. If SUVs were around in the capacity like they are today, he probably would have had one of those. But they didn't, and so my dad always had a station wagon the whole time I was a kid because he was constantly taking stuff from one of his stores to another if he had multiple stores at the time, or from one of his stores to one of his friend's stores, or vice versa, picking up some things. And I remember at one point we were taking sugar from one of his stores. I think he had 2 stores at the time. One was in Chester and one was in Hunting Park, which is, 30 miles? I don't know, whatever it is. But he loaded this car up with sugar. Now, a case of sugar, 5-pound sugar, I think there were 12, so 60 pounds, right? And I don't know how many cases of sugar he had in there. Every time he hit a bump, of course, he bottomed out. And the wheels would scrape. That's why he went through cars so fast. That license plate number ended in 894. So it wasn't long before that the Pennsylvania lottery had started, the daily number it was called at the time. It was the only lottery that they had besides the scratchers. So he started playing that number on occasion. If he was near a lottery machine, it wasn't as easy as it is today, where everybody and their brother has a machine and there's 8 million different lotteries and numbers you could play. And so when he was near one, if he would walk into the drugstore that we went to, if they had the machine, he would buy it, or a deli or whatever. So since then, since the mid-'70s, I always watch for 894 to come out. And it doesn't come out very often. Now, it did come out one day last week, I want to say in New Jersey during their daytime drawing. And again, unless it comes out at nighttime on the Pennsylvania lottery, it doesn't matter where else it comes out. So I bought that from him. So technically now, not technically, I do have 21 tickets. I spent $105, so $5 over my budget, usually. Now, last time I also spent $105 because one of the tickets fell out in the car when Liz was going somewhere, and we didn't notice it until the end. So I said, well, that must mean something. That must mean it's going to win. It didn't. And I kind of think the number was 142, but I don't remember. It was either 142 or 042, which is funny because now I watch for 042 because as I've probably mentioned, on my cane, on my collapsible cane, my foldable cane, I have a miniature baseball bat. It's about 2 or 3 inches long, and it's blue. I think the writing, I don't know if the writing is white or yellow, but it has a number 42 on it. Jane got it at the Jackie Robinson Museum. And so I call that cane Jackie, of course. And so now when I see 42 anywhere, I think of that. So again, if you're interested, please, in buying a raffle ticket or several, please reach out to me, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. And as I did with Renee and Dan and Alex, we will fill out the tickets. Liz will, because her handwriting is much nicer than mine. And I will take a picture of them and hopefully, at the same time, send you those numbers in the text version or the email version beneath that picture so that you can easily see them or have them read by your screen reader. Now, just to follow up, that when I filled out my ticket for $8.94, I printed it terribly, and I just printed my name and my phone number. because there's no way it's a little tiny, maybe inch by 2 inches where you have to write. So there's not a lot of room. So if you can't see anything, I probably would have been better off writing on the back side of it as well. But I didn't. So I saved my stub. And anybody that has bought tickets from me, I do have your stubs as well, so that we have proof. And obviously the image is proof as well. So I would appreciate that. Reach out again, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com. And again, I thank you. And the NFB of Pennsylvania thanks you. So I mentioned that I did some traveling this week, and I've been technically to Harrisburg twice. The one time I was just passing through, though. So I'll talk about leadership seminar first, because that was the bigger of the two events. That was a couple days in State College, Pennsylvania. And what it was, typically we've done team building and things like that. Now this year was a little bit different, and I really, really liked this year's version. And that's why I think we should call it Leadership Summit, because they set up 5 committees. Lynn Heights did, the president. And so the 5 committees, Finance Committee, which I'm on, Tech Committee, which I chair. There's an Outreach Committee, a Membership Committee, and a Fundraising Committee. On Friday night, 3 of the committees met, and on Saturday, the other 2 committees. And if you weren't meeting during those times, fortunately, I was meeting both those times, you folded and stuffed envelopes for our spring appeal. And what that is, it's a letter that says a whole bunch of things about what we do, and it asks for money, obviously. And so in the envelope goes the letter. There's a return envelope, and I think it's stamped. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know about the stamped part, because I didn't do any. On the letter, there's also a QR code as well as a web address, which is, if you want to give to the NFB of Pennsylvania, the mail appeal code or URL is nfbofpa.org/mail-appeal. The QR code goes right to the PayPal link, and bing, bang, boom, you're done. And of course, the envelope is in there if you want to send a check, which is also accepted. The whole thing revolved around those committees meeting, and it's the first time that the committees have met face-to-face. I met with the Tech Committee briefly via Zoom about a month before, once we had everybody on the committee. Now, the great thing about going to State College is Berkey Creamery and the hotel, and I'll get to the hotel in a minute. Berkey Creamery is part of Penn State University, and they have a place, and I was worried because a few years ago, it was spring break, and it was closed when we were there, and I was so bummed because I wanted to try it, and it was closed. This year, it was during spring break, but they had hours of, I think, 9 to 5 or something like that. I know, what a way to make a living. So a bunch of us, Kat Botner had said, hey, I heard of this place. Maybe we should go there. And I said, well, we're not close to anything. Our hotel was the Wyndham Garden Hotel in Boalsburg, which is outside of State College, probably 10 or 15 minutes, or about $20 via Uber or Lyft. So I told Kat that, and she said, oh, I thought it would be close and we could go. I said, I didn't say we couldn't go. So on the train and the bus coming up, everybody's saying, hey, are we going to go to the Creamery? Hey, are we going to go there? So a bunch of us, 2 Uberfuls, went to the Creamery for ice cream. Now, we thought we could get in one car. So I ordered an XL. And the guy pulls up, and the XL was $10 more. Guy pulls up, and his name was Robert. And he said, I'm only running as an X right now. I said, but I paid for an XL. And I said, well, I want to cancel the ride. And one of the people in the group, her name is Rachel, said, no, let him cancel it, because if you cancel it, you'll be charged. And I said, well, I would fight it. She says, yeah, but why bother if he could cancel it and be done with it? So he canceled it. We ordered 2 Ubers. Kosi ordered one, and I ordered one. Who came back as an Uber X about 5 minutes later was Robert in his whatever his SUV was. I don't remember what it was. And then my guy pulled up. His name was Tan, and he was Egyptian, and it was an SUV. It was very comfortable. And he was very friendly. He told us all these things. So we get to the creamery. Now, the one group had gotten there obviously earlier because Robert was closer by. And so they, by the time we got there, were already eating. I was in an Uber with Amalia and Rachel, and then Kosi and Stacy and her daughter Alana and Kat were in the other Uber. So they were eating by the time we got there. And the line, thank God, wasn't that long. But I didn't know what to get. I'm thinking, I don't want to get the same thing I got last time. And I ended up getting chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream, which was outstanding. And I was in Harrisburg, like I said earlier, another time. And after dinner, the night that I was there, I thought, man, I wish they had Penn State Creamery here. But they didn't, so I didn't have, my dessert was a handful of M&Ms. We had the ice cream. We went back. We got back to the hotel. And about 5 to 10 minutes later, it was time for dinner. A group of us sat together. I think there was 10 at our table. There was another table where there was 4 or 5. And dinner was good. And I noticed when I was walking down, one of the guys on the tech committee was walking down. His name is Chris Westbrook. And he was having some difficulty. And I was trying, he also has some hearing issues. I was trying to come with him and one other person who's, I forget who it was, one of the other people in the leadership. And we're walking down and he starts to wander off. Chris was wandering away from where I was. One of the people there noticed him and said, hey, can I help you? Where are you trying to go? And she helped him into the restaurant right after, it was Chip, right after Chip and I. So we sit down, we eat dinner. And as we're paying the bills, and we're all paying individual bills, and these people are working like crazy because there's a table, like I said, of 10 of us, and I guess there were 6 or 7 separate bills because there were a couple of couples with us. So we get everything. I had placed an order to go for Stacy, and as Chris was paying, this girl came back over and said, hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm the person that helped you in. Do you need help getting back to your room? She helped him back to his room. Outstanding. So we have the meetings that night. And the tech committee was, to me, it was a great meeting because I have some things in my mind that I want to do. And some of the things that we need to do, we need some sort of CRM for the affiliate to manage both members and donors. And the way we used to do it was a little bit of code on our website and a backdoor entrance to enter the names and all the information. And that way, the way you entered them, before it dumped it into a spreadsheet, it would check to see if that person was already on there. And the code was outdated. It was written by somebody that's no longer with the affiliate, so we needed something else. We couldn't keep running that version because we needed to we needed to use an older version of PHP that wasn't supported, so it was costing us money each month to do that. So right now we have just a spreadsheet, and there's no way, obviously, you can do a search, but it's a little tricky if you're totally blind, like the person that is doing all this work. So we've been looking, we looked into Salesforce, which there's a steep learning curve. It's free to nonprofits, but there's still a cost to get it up and running, or a long learning curve to make it work the way you want it if you don't know it yet, which none of us know it. Although I did find out later that Kosi knows it a little bit. So that's a possibility moving forward. But we need something now because we haven't had anything since November. And this girl is chomping at the bit to get all these people entered. And you may also be saying, where do you get the names from? Besides the people who are members and the people who are donors, the NFB has a free white cane, I guess you would call it policy. If you need a white cane, you contact the NFB and you get a choice between a collapsible one, which is kind of like if you've ever seen a tripod that has the collapsible legs, or just a long cane that doesn't collapse, which I love the long cane, but the problem is it doesn't collapse. So when you get in an Uber or you get on a train or a bus or a plane, it's a pain in the butt to deal with because you got to work it in and you got to work it into a crevice where it's not flopping all over. And so the collapsible one is nice because it folds up and you can put it in the seat back of the seat in front, or you could put it on the seat next to you, whatever. But it's out of the way. Now, the downside of the collapsible or foldable cane that I have, which was $80 from Amazon, I'll link to it in the show notes in case you want one. And I do love it because it's got the spring-loaded handle and everything. It's the luxury model of white canes. It's got the marshmallow tip. Everything about it is great except for it's not light like the straight cane that I have, the non-collapsible one that I call Nigel because I've got a Beefeater keychain on it, and I just named it Nigel. When someone requests a white cane from the NFB, anyone who is from Pennsylvania gets a cane, and then we get their information from NFB National. And then Jan, who is the person that does this, inputs that into our database so that we can contact them for donations, we can contact them for membership, for outreach to say, hey, these chapters are available, these divisions are available. Maybe you want to join the blind merchants or the guide dogs or the parents of blind children or the blind parents. One of those divisions where you can get involved and learn how to deal with all the different things going on now that you've lost your sight, or because you've lost your sight, or because you don't have any sight now, whatever the case may be. And it is a lot harder, I think, if one day you have sight and a week later you don't. And in some cases, it's one day you have sight, the next day you don't. And for various reasons, whether it's diabetes, a gunshot to the head, whatever it might be. I know people that went to bed with sight and woke up the next morning and didn't have it. It just, and there's other reasons too, obviously. So we need some sort of CRM. We talked about that at the meeting. We talked about social media at the meeting because we have NFB of PA on we have it on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and there's one more, Twitter. But we talked about two other places. We're not on LinkedIn and we're not on Pinterest. Pinterest is a little bit funny because it's very visual. Why would blind people go to Pinterest? And I'm not so interested, or I should say Pinterested, in Pinterest maybe for outreach or membership or that. But Pinterest is a great search engine. So if somebody is in music and finds our pins on the upcoming piano bar, we can link right from that pin to the page to buy tickets, right to it. And they could buy a ticket for $5. I don't have that link yet, but once we have that link, I'll put it in the show notes. It might not be this episode. We have our first meeting is tonight on that. So that's why I'm interested in Pinterest, or Pinterested in Pinterest. Besides that, there's Giving Tuesday and other times throughout the year where we want to solicit donations for various reasons. We're getting a charter bus to go from the Philadelphia area to Erie in November, and it's going to be between $6,000 and $9,000 depending on which bus we get. If we get a 52 passenger, it's going to be around $6,300. If we get the 72 passenger, it's going to be a little over $9,000. So it's important that we have that, again, not necessarily to find blind people. And that may, at some point, a family member may say, oh, yeah, this is cool. Let me click on that and then come to our site and say, oh, yeah, this might help Aunt so-and-so or Uncle Jim or whoever. For that reason, we're going to do it. It shouldn't take too long each week to schedule a week's worth of pins, doing maybe 2 a day. It might also help drive some more traffic to our site. So we're going to do Pinterest. In fact, I signed up for the Pinterest account last night. I haven't done the LinkedIn one yet, but that's also obviously important to do as well. Talked about that. We talked about those listservs, which I think I've mentioned before, which I can't stand, but we need them and people use them. We also talked as part of the CRM of doing Google Groups can be set to where it is just a broadcast type of thing as opposed to like the listservs where somebody could put out a message and then people could respond to it. We're not going to do it to have a response. We're just going to use it to broadcast because sometimes the listservs things don't get out on a timely fashion. Sometimes there's a 12-hour delay. And when you're talking about a meeting that might be that night and you put it out at 10 in the morning, 12 hours later, it's too late if you want to go to that meeting. So we did that. So it was very productive. It was a very productive meeting, and that part was awesome. And then afterwards, on Friday night, we all congregated in the bar. I had my normal iced teas. No, not Long Island, just regular. The next day, the morning, there were some groups that met. The finance committee met. We talked about some things, had some issues going on with some weirdness in our books that we have to address. Then we broke for lunch, and then we had a board meeting, which if you're on the board, obviously you take part in. If you're not on the board, you could stuff envelopes, which people did, but also paid attention. And then after that, we had a meeting for the convention, which I mentioned is in Erie, coming up in November. So we have some ideas from that. We have some ideas from the board meeting. And then Saturday night, there's a dinner, and the dinner is a buffet. And the hotel helps out the folks that need it with either helping someone to their table with their dish or running and getting, the drinks aren't out. So you have to ask somebody. There's a couple of folks in there that just come around with iced tea or water. And here's the funny thing about that. So I love iced tea, which everybody knows. I have right now my 64-ounce Stanley right here. It's going to make a thud when I put it down. I have that. When I got to the table and I saw that there was iced tea, I drank it almost in about 3 seconds because I was really thirsty. I didn't have a lot to drink that day. I thought, I need another iced tea. And one of the guys there who was cited, who was friends with our new treasurer, Michelle, he asked me as I was going up to get my food, do you need any help? I said, no. I said, but man, I'd love some more iced tea. So I go and I get my food and I come back. And on my way back to the table, this girl, Chelsea, who helped Chris the night before, said, I put an iced tea at your spot. I said, oh, thank you. Well, when I get there, it is a venti-sized plastic cup, a reusable plastic cup. It was one of those red that you would see stacked up at a restaurant or whatever, but it was probably a 20-ounce, which was outstanding. And I got there and I said, oh, my God, this is great. And when she came around again, I said, oh, this is great. I said, could I have more? I think I drank 4 of those, plus the little glass I had first. At the end of the dinner, she said, is there anything else you need? I said, no, we're getting ready to go. And I gave her some money. She was awesome because not only was she doing that, but there was dessert. And she said, are you guys going to have dessert? She came over to our table and I said, yes. I saw that the table's over there and I pointed to the general direction that it was. I said, do you know what it is? She said, well, there's an apple crumb cake and a chocolate peanut butter cake. I'm like, wow, they both sound great. So one of the other guys at our table, and I'm thinking, man, I'd love to have a little of both. One of the other guys at our table, Jason, says, oh, could I have a little piece of both? And she says, sure. She goes and gets it for him. I said, I'll have the same. And so she went and got us instead of us getting up. And that, I felt a little bad because one of the things the NFB is big on is independence. Get up off your ass and get it yourself. Now, I don't want to try to hack up the cake. Obviously, if somebody was there to cut it for me, that's fine. I could certainly carry it back to the table. And I'm guessing the others could as well. But she brought it over to us, and it was almost like we had a waiter for our table. And again, she was awesome. Chelsea, Wyndham Gardens at Boalsburg, which is just outside of State College. The difference between this hotel and our stay for those 2 days at Leadership and the Crown Plaza in Harrisburg, it was night and day. Eugenio kept saying, yeah, we were due this after our convention in Harrisburg. And it really was incredibly different. Everybody on staff, and it wasn't just Chelsea. Chelsea was the one we had most interaction with. But the fact that she took and saw that Chris was having trouble, and he does have mobility issues as well. He walks with another cane besides his white cane. She helped him back to his room. She was so helpful at dinner. She was so helpful around. She memorized all our names as we talked to each other. It was just outstanding. And everybody was like that. The other people who were waiting there on us that night at the buffet, the people in the restaurant and bar, And the people at the front desk, just outstanding. It was just so incredible. And they were so good. And that really made a difference to us. And it's a shame that Penn State is so difficult for blind folks to get to. Obviously, if you can drive from Philadelphia, you get there in about 4 hours. If you got to take the bus and the train, it's more like 5.5 hours between waiting once you get off the bus and get on the train, or vice versa. Now, it turns out there's a very quick turnaround. In fact, one year they had to hold the bus for us because the train was late. So it's not ideal that you have to change in the middle, but it is what it is. But it would obviously be a lot easier if we could just all get in a car and go there. So it was just outstanding. Sunday, there was nothing going on, just breakfast, which the hotel, like all Wyndham Gardens do the free breakfast. So the one issue I had with breakfast was I wanted one piece of bacon. First day I wanted one piece of bacon. I grabbed one piece with the tongs, and 6 others came up with it. So I had about 7 pieces of bacon that day. So the next day I was trying to pick through and find one that wasn't so heavy, and I still picked up about 4 pieces because they were all stuck together. And the guy doing the breakfast there, also outstanding, just incredible, the service that we got there. Again, it goes a long way when we think, hey, where do we want to go next year for either leadership, or where do we want to go for convention? And for a while, there was a good stretch where the convention was in State College area for 6 or 7 years in a row. My first one was in State College. It was at a different hotel, but the benefit of that was it was right downtown, and I could have walked to Penn State Creamery, which I realized after I had gone in the Uber. So that part was great. So we had breakfast the next day. We figured, okay, we got to order the Ubers or Lyfts a little early because it's a Sunday morning. It takes a while for them to come, and it took around 15 minutes for us to get, I think we got 2 or 3, I don't remember. We got over to the bus, and we get to the bus, and we find out it's 45 minutes late. Well, one of the Uber drivers, his name was John, Stacy had ordered him, he hung around, which was very, very nice. Here's the problem. So the bus finally comes. He's waiting there with us. The bus driver sees him and thinks he's our aide, and he's the one that's in charge of all these blind people waiting there in line. He starts putting the luggage on the bus as the driver got out, probably went to the bathroom. He's putting the luggage on so the driver doesn't see our luggage. My suitcase, the handle came off as I was walking out the door Friday morning, so the luggage tag fell off, which I didn't even know. I don't have my name anywhere else on the bag. All I know is it's a black bag. I don't know anything else about it. It's got a few pockets. It's got the thing that pulls up so you could wheel it. It's a carry-on. So she was really, really agitated because she didn't put it on. She also only communicated to John like he was our leader, and we were all just dumb blind people that couldn't do anything on our own. To the point when we got to Harrisburg, and she flew from State College to Harrisburg because it was going to be tight for us to get the train, because we have to go from one level of the station to another to go from the bus to the train. We have to get our luggage, which, as I mentioned, was going to be an issue. And she complained about it as she was looking for all the luggage. She was pretty miserable, this woman, to begin with. Maybe because she was late and she was stuck in traffic somewhere before State College, coming from wherever she was coming from. She said, well, who's here to help you? And we said, we don't need help. We're here on our own. And she said, you are? She didn't understand that guy was just an Uber driver. And that's what a lot of people think of blind folks when they're out. They can't do anything on their own. And it just continued that issue, at least in that lady's mind, because she saw this guy jumping in thinking that he was in charge of us, or, leading us through all of the troubles that we have to avoid. When we got into the station and we get upstairs, a couple of the girls had to go to the bathroom. So obviously rather to use the bathroom there than on the train. So we go upstairs to the train station portion of the building, and I figured, you know what, I'm going to use the men's room. Again, easier to pee when you're not swaying all around than to wait and get on the train and have to go. The bathroom was closed. Now, when the guy said the bathroom was closed, I thought both bathrooms were closed, but it was only the men's room. The ladies' room, good to go. Girls went, everything was good. Guys held it. And I think guys, I guess it was only, oh no, there was 3 of us. We get to the train, the guy's going to help us get on, the red cap, and it's the same guy that was there when we got off on Friday. It was the same guy that told us to line up single file when we got off on Friday, and we said, we don't need to line up single file. First of all, we can't tell that we're single file, number one. Number two, unless we're holding on to one another, we don't know where the person is in front other than hearing their cane tap or them talking or their feet touching the floor, whatever it may be. So he was also the guy that I mentioned back in November when one of our members freaked out and said, we can do it on our own, and was yelling at the guy. This is the same guy that that called for backup. Still makes me chuckle. Now, he has learned, and he was much better with us when we told him we didn't need to line up and do single file. We don't need to hang on to one another. Again, we're all carrying our luggage. Maybe 1 or 2 of them put it on a cart. I don't think when we were going back to Philly, I don't think that was the case. Coming off the train, it was all on a cart, or at least some of it was. But going back, I think we were all carrying our own. When we got to Philadelphia, a guy helps us. He takes us on the elevator. He says, I have to go get a few more people, not in our group. You guys just stay here. So we start moving. I said to everybody, do we need to wait here for him? You know, one person was going to meet another Amtrak train to Wilmington. That was Kat. One of the other people, Kosi, was going to get on a SEPTA train. And the rest of us were going to get Ubers or get rides. I was going to wait for Liz. Chip was going to get an Uber, and Stacy and Eugenia were going to go in a private car, which I guess technically Ubers are as well, but a friend was going to pick up Stacy and give Eugenia a ride. So when we started to move and we were about, 20 yards down the hallway, the guy comes up, the red cap, and starts yelling at us, why, I told you not to move. Again, I said, we're good. We know where we're going. She may need help. And I pointed to Kat because she's got to catch another Amtrak train. So if you would help her, that would be great. The rest of us are good. And he kind of understood because he grabbed my arm to help me. I did air quotes. Again, folks see blind people like they're completely incapable of doing things on their own. I mean, there are things I'm incapable of doing, but it's not because I can't see. Some of it, maybe because I can't see. Again, I'm not going to drive a car on my own, maybe one of those autonomous cars once it's available, but not on my own. And I'll tell you more when I talk about going to Harrisburg for the BEP in a minute. Everybody had a great trip. Leadership was outstanding, but those things that I just mentioned are going to be what sticks in my mind just as much as the things we accomplished with the tech committee or the finance committee or things we talked about at the board meeting. And one thing that I have to tell you, I have a Zoom H1N, which is a little recorder. Here's how small it is. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. It's in this little case. I took it to both State College to record the meetings, at least the finance meeting and the board meeting. And I took it to Harrisburg to record the BEP meeting. In State College, when I used it, we were at a big round table that seats 8 for the finance meeting. We were in one corner. Everybody else was on the other side of the room. It was a big ballroom. So there was the one other meeting and then the other 2 or 3 tables. They were folding and stuffing envelopes. So they're talking and joking, and one table's yelling from them to another table about something. Hey, do you have more of this? Hey, I need this, or whatever. Or what'd you eat for dinner last night? Whatever it was. But you could hear all that. So I recorded it. You could hear all of that. And I'm thinking, man, I wonder how this is going to record. When I listened to it, it came out where you could hear everybody at our table, plus some of the folks at the other, or, all the other ancillary noise around the room. I use Auphonic when I publish a podcast, whether it's this podcast or White Canes Connect. And I've played around with it a little bit, but not as much as I did to try and get the audio from those meetings to sound better, because the audio from our podcasts are never quite as bad. Well, I played around with it more because A, the file was a lot smaller, and I only get 9 hours a month for my, what do I pay? About $11. So I want to make sure I have enough for both podcasts. I saw this one other setting when I was playing around with it for the finance meeting. And I did that. I ran it for that one. I was amazed. It sounded like everybody was in a studio and we were feet apart. The recorder was on the table in front of me on a tripod facing towards Emily, who is the chair of the finance committee. Next to her on her right was Lynn, and to her left was Michelle, and next to me was Brian on my left, and on my right was Eugenio. So they're the members of the finance committee. Everybody came out so good when I sent it through Auphonic with that. I'll put a link to Auphonic. I'm not an affiliate for them, but there is you can get 2 hours free. And when I when I do run over my 9 hours, I do have another account for White Canes Connect that's a free account that gets you 2 hours. But just incredible. I played it for Liz and she couldn't believe it either. That was our trip to leadership. We really got a lot done and it was just so worth going. And just the format difference from previous years was just outstanding. I mentioned going to Harrisburg for a BEP meeting. Now, this was the same meeting that I was supposed to go to last year that was in the Labor and Industry building. And last year, the night before the meeting, the building got shut down because there was asbestos found, and the building stayed shut down for a few days or maybe even a week. So I spent all that money getting out there. I paid a few $100s for the hotel, and I paid for dinner, obviously, at the hotel. And obviously my train tickets, that was the cheapest part of it because there's a special deal. I should point that out, and I'm sorry if I haven't pointed that out before. If you're going from Philadelphia to Harrisburg, use code V819. Round trip is about $35. And there is a discount if you're disabled and you just click it in the app. You have to call to get that discount. It's for senior citizens and disabled on that route only on that. So again, makes it very inexpensive to go back and forth. We had to use a combination going to State College, so it didn't work on that. So this year I made the reservation for the hotel. Now this year they had already given a code or they got a special deal on the rooms at the Crowne Plaza, unfortunately. And it was $115 a night, which was great because, like I said, last year I spent a couple $100. I don't remember exactly how much. So I get out to Harrisburg late afternoon, I want to say 4:30, 5 o'clock. I walked over to the hotel, and I knew as long as it wasn't raining, I was going to walk because it's an $8 or $10 Uber ride, but it's only a few blocks and it's an easy walk. It's a nice walk. There's crosswalks and lights and everything else. And for the most part, lights in Harrisburg have those buttons that you can push to tell you when it's safe to go. Otherwise, I could use the OCO app or just listen like I usually do. You listen, as we're taught in mobility, to listen for the traffic, which I did that also. But when the lights had those crossing things, the buttons you could push and listen, obviously that made it a lot easier. And that kind of messed me up, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I get out there, and I had a meeting that night at 6, not in Harrisburg, but via Zoom, to talk to someone who may sponsor some or all of the bus going to Erie. And I'm hoping they do a big chunk of it. That would be great. Otherwise, whatever they give us, it's going to be great. So we're going to see how that is. But we had the meeting. It was only about a half an hour, 40 minutes. I walked about 3,100 steps during that meeting in my hotel room while on that call. Afterwards, I looked out the window. It was still light out. It's around 6:45. And there is a Mexican place around the corner from the hotel. And I thought, do I want to have that? Do I want to walk over there and get it and eat it there? Do I want to walk over there and get it and bring it back? Or do I just want to get a bacon cheeseburger in the restaurant downstairs? I opted for the bacon cheeseburger downstairs. When I get to the top of the stair, I go down to the first floor, make the left heading towards the restaurant, and there's a sign that is right at the top of the stairs. And it's like I said, 4 steps or so. So I take out my phone to see what it says. Listen to Seeing AI. It says seating available in the lounge. So no one's in the restaurant area. You can get dinner, but you have to eat it in the lounge. So there's a few people in there, 3 or 4, eating at the bar. And I go up to the bar. Guy says to me, "Can I help you?" I know the voice. As I get closer, I know the guy. His name is Desmond. He is the hospitality manager from the hotel. He is the guy that said I was lying when we had a phone call after the disastrous hotel portion of the convention. And I'm thinking, oh man, have I made a mistake? This guy's going to spit on my food. He's going to he's going to put it in his pants like in Road Trip or whatever. So I'm fearful of what I'm going to get. After I placed my order, I thought, I shouldn't have done that. I should have just left at that point as soon as I saw it was him. And I just didn't think fast enough on my feet. So I got a bacon cheeseburger and fries. I immediately texted Emily and Lynn, and I said, I think I just made a big mistake. I said, Desmond is the guy who's at the bar tonight. The normal bartender, Rod, was off. And I worried. And I was texting with Liz. I was texting with Jane and Emily and Lynn. And I thought, man, have I made a mistake? So as soon as I got my food, I gave him a tip. I'm thinking, am I tipping him for poisoning me? Am I tipping him for doing something to my food? I got back, I got the food, got up to my room, and he said I put some ketchup and mayo and mustard packets in there. Well, he did. And the burger didn't have the bun on top. You know how they do a burger where it's open face. You see the bottom, the top bun is not on the hamburger, and you've got the pickles and lettuce and tomato and onions on top of it. He threw all these packets. They all sat right on top of the burger, which was a cheeseburger, like I said. So some of it, as I'm pulling it up, are sticking to it, which I thought was kind of gross because who knows where those packets were that now are going to be on what I eat. But I thought if this is the worst, so be it. Take a picture of it after I take all the packets off, and I send it to Liz. I said, does this look okay? She said, yeah. I ate it. It was very, very salty. I'm not sure why. I'm hoping it's just there was a lot of salt and there were no other bodily fluids in there. But I ate it. I actually thought it, like I said, was pretty good other than being really salty. And the fries were really salty. I was so thirsty the rest of the night. Fortunately, I had brought a bottle of water with me. I drank most of that, but I needed some for the next day. Oh, and one thing I forgot, when I was checking in, I get to the front desk. Hi, checking in, give them my name. Okay, I just need your driver's license. And I started to chuckle. And I'm holding my cane. I mean, it's leaning up against my shoulder. I said, well, I don't have a driver's license. I didn't say for obvious reasons. But I'll give you my state ID. And I give it to him. And he helps me. He was otherwise nice. And he gave me a bottle of water, a small bottle of water, and a pack of crackers because I'm an IHG rewards member. And I have to check to see if I got the points for that. After I eat, I'm like, now what do I do? It's, I don't know, not even 8 o'clock at night. I called Liz, talked to Liz for a little bit. Later on in the evening, I called Jane. I was bored. I was listening to podcasts, watching YouTube. And I was especially sleepy because I hadn't had any iced tea that day. So I finally just decided to go to bed, get up the next day. I have to be at the Labor and Industry building for 8:30 for the meeting. I go to the meeting, and what this is, it's a yearly meeting, and they talk about all the things that are going on in the Business Enterprise Program, which is part of the Randolph-Shepard Act, which gives blind folks the opportunity to operate blind bodegas or grab-and-goes, as they're called, or cafeterias, and there's not so many of them anymore, and I'll tell you why in a second. And vending places, vending operations. And the vending operations could be in postal facilities where there's 30 machines to some where we did a mini training later in the afternoon where in this building there was only, I want to say there was 5 machines. But that building was also part of another building which was across the street, and there was another building down the street that one guy operated. So they could make enough money to live on and be a successful business. If it was only those 5 machines, it would have been difficult to make enough money to, live on each month. So they talk about everything that's going on. Judy is the, what do they call them? The licensee leader. And so she talked about some things. We had some guest speakers. There was one lady her name was Annette from Ohio, and part of the BEP there. Now, each state also has what's called a Little Randolph-Shepard Act. So in Ohio, besides the state and federal buildings that you can put these different things in, they also can go into colleges and universities that are funded by the state. And just the day before, Amalia had asked me if she could do one in Shippensburg. And I said, well, first of all, it doesn't happen that fast. And second of all, we're not in the schools here. And she's from, I don't know initially what state, but most recently from Louisiana. So I told her that it would take too long for you to even get started in it right now because there's no training, and I'll get to that in a minute. So Annette talked about that, and so I talked to someone named Tony afterwards, who's a licensee, who happened to have the facility, the grab and go that was in the building we were in, the Labor and Industry building. And we talked about it, and he said in the Pennsylvania mini Randolph-Shepard, state schools are not part of that, and it would be almost impossible to get them in now. There was a lawyer there that talked about things. Sometimes things get sent to legal, and it takes a year just to get either approved or the legal stuff fixed up. And it's just unreal how slow government works. It is just unreal. And the biggest issue of that is training. There has not been training for the BEP program since late 2019. So almost 5 years ago. 5 years. So there's been no one new that has come into the program because you can't get a place until you pass training. Training can be a couple of months, and then you can go into some of the stands to get a little bit of extra. It used to be at a place in Johnstown called the HGAC, which is not ideal because Johnstown is even harder to get to than State College. So the training hasn't happened, and there's a group of licensees who is trying to go through the training to approve it and make it right. And it just reminded me, as one of the other licensees was speaking, Pam was giving the presentation on that. One of the other guys on the board was saying, hey, we don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to have to come back 3 years from now and fix it. At this pace, it might be 3 years from now before that even gets done. And I'm thinking in my mind, why would anybody want to be in the BEP? Because you can't get in now. You can't use certain vendors to do certain things. If a machine has to get moved from one of your locations to another, you've got to have somebody that's approved and licensed and so forth. It is like jumping through hoops. And the whole time there, I'm thinking, man, this is just the dumbest thing ever. And I'm thinking, again, why would you want to be in the BEP? Then we go across the street, and I'll get into this in a minute a little bit more. And we're looking at the 5 machines that are in this facility. And I'm standing next to Pam Baccaro, who is the president of the Pennsylvania Association of Blind Merchants. And she says to me, that machine that this guy was training on is 10 grand. I said, but he didn't pay for it, right? The guy who has this location didn't pay for it, right? Nope. BEP paid for it. That's why you're in the BEP. You don't pay for any of the equipment. To a degree, you get a certain allowance for your first set of inventory, and you're off to go. There's some other benefits of being in it as well, but that is the main thing. I mean, we're looking at these 5 machines. It could be between 20 and 30 grand, maybe more, of equipment that you would have to pay if you were just doing it on your own. That's why you get in the BEP, and you're limited because of that, and that's why you want to get in. But again, I told them I wanted to be in it 2 years ago, and still training I couldn't do anything right now. I couldn't do anything. It's just unreal because there are, with a few exceptions, most of the people in the program right now are over 50 years old. Some are even older. So in the next 5 to 10 years, these people are going to start retiring. And who's going to fill the spots? And it almost seems to me like they don't want this program to happen. I mean, it's law from 1938, I think. It's law. You got to do it. It's written. It's like the 10 commandments. That's why you want to be in the BEP. And again, each state varies. They always bring up the COVID. Oh, well, COVID had something to do with it. Most of the other states are up and running with training. And I just don't understand why it takes so long. And I've got it on, like I said, I recorded the meeting, so I'm interested to go back and listen because I'm sure I missed some things. There were some technical issues with, I think they used Microsoft Teams or Google Meet. I don't remember which one. They had technical issues. It reminded me of a Keystone meeting when there was issues with Zoom. It was great to hear all the things that are going on. But another thing that happened was one of the people on the state side of things, meaning the government employee, she gave her notice. And the next day this was on Thursday. So today was her last day. Pam has been working with this woman since she started back in August. She had no idea. One of the other licensees knew, and another licensee knew, but they were told it in confidence. But yet Pam, who is working with this person, has no idea. Again, just very shady. It's just previously there was some folks stealing money, just a lot of craziness going on. Now, it seems like the guy named Wes has good intentions. Whether the follow-through of that makes it work, that's another story. He seemed like a good guy. He's the guy that got the job over me. And I don't know that I would have been able to do that job, but I can tell you that I would have been able to know what a blind person is like. And I would have been able to tell you that when we went to do the training inside the Capitol building for this one machine, and I went because I wanted to see the machine. I wasn't interested in the training because I obviously don't have any space. But I wanted to see the machine. I wanted to go into the Capitol building. So we get into the Capitol building and we go through security. Every one of us beeped. They didn't check us. We get into this vending room and it's a very cool machine. Big video screen in the front, touch screen. I said to the guy who's doing the training, who I guess his company either manufactures the machine or sells the machine. I said, "Is that machine accessible?" He said, "Yeah, it's right here." And I chuckled. And I said, "No. If I were to use it, does it speak to me? Does it tell me what I'm pushing? No." He then went on and told us about everything in the machine. And he kept saying, you can see there's 3 or 4 stickers here that tell you what these buttons do. And you can see this and you can see that. And I'm thinking, no, we really can't. Oh, well, and at one point he said, this is really hard to do, so you're going to need your assistant to do it. And I said, well, that's great to know that you're going to have an assistant to do this business because, and with the vending, you kind of do need someone. And most people, if they're fortunate, they have a relative that does the business with them because the relative can drive and so forth. So that makes it easier because if you have to hire someone outside of your immediate family to do it, it then makes it obviously less profitable. But if you're spending whatever you take for a salary and whatever that other person takes for a salary, let's say it's $1,000 a week in salary, and all of that $1,000 is coming back to your household, that's great. But if you're spending $500 a week on you and $500 a week on your driver / assistant, then you got to make that much more money, and it makes it obviously a lot less palatable. So I just thought that was funny, and I chuckled, and I took a video of it, and I was mad because I did a vertical video, and I should have done a horizontal video so that I could use it in the video portion of the podcast. I mean, I could still use the vertical video. And I have to tell you, using the script to do the video, at the end, it gives me both a horizontal video and a vertical video of the podcast. It does it all automatically. I don't have to tell it to do it. Once I edit it, I'm sorry, that's not Descript, it's CapCut. once I finish editing it and I process it, gives me two versions, vertical and horizontal, which is very cool. I'm wondering if CapCut is going to get banned like TikTok, though, because it's owned by the same company. So they may be, if you see me hawking different products in China, it's not me. They've AI'd me, and I don't know why they would do that, but I guess I should take that as a compliment, right? So it was just interesting to see the workings of the machine, and the machine was very cool. But like I said, or maybe I didn't mention, the machine would cost $10,000 if you had to buy it outright. But again, it was taken care of by the BEP, and the product cost per drink, 40 cents. He never told us what the prices ranged from because it had hot chocolate, all sorts of lattes and things like that. I'm sure the drinks range from $3 to $5, maybe even more. So you can see how profitable a machine is, especially if you don't have to spend the 10 grand on it. Just imagine how many things you'd have to sell to make it worth to have that machine. You've got to have a lot of activity to make it worthwhile. Just like when I had the video store, we knew that each video, depending on how much they cost, we needed on a sell-through video, which was anything under $30, we know we needed to rent it around 10 times before we could break even. On videos that came out priced for rental, we knew we had to rent it. I forget what the number was. It was, I want to say 37 times, something like that. It was a lot because they cost anywhere from $55 to $70. So do the math at, I think when we closed, I think we were renting videos for $3.25. When we started, they were $1.98. So they had to make a lot of turns. And, sometimes they'd go bad. If they went bad in the first 30 days, we can get a replacement. After 30 days, we were out of luck. So it was a lot. But once you made 37 turns on a copy, everything above that was profit. And at the time, we were renting overnight only. So, we knew we had to rent them. If after 4 or 5 weeks, we were good. So after the meeting, and again, this guy didn't know his audience, this guy who was doing the training for this machine. And I just thought that was funny. So it was I don't want to say disheartening afternoon after hearing what they were saying about the training. And I started to think about it after the meeting. When you get a job, you get trained. Sometimes it's for a couple of weeks, sometimes only a week. When I had my West Coast video franchise, the franchisor trained me for 1 week on site and then had somebody in the store after we opened for, I don't know, a few days to a week. I don't remember how long. This training is, I want to say, for at least 8 weeks, might be more. And that to me is incredible. I don't know any place you would go to get trained for that long, especially the vending. Here's a bottle of water. You put it in that machine there. You take the money out or get the credit cards there. You can use an app to see how many you've sold and all that. And I know it's more than that. And I know not everybody has the business sense that I have. But most people that have common sense can operate vending machines. Maybe not necessarily a grab and go where there's a lot more moving parts, where you got to learn a cash register and you got to learn how to do the submissions for your payments to the BEP for the business that you've done and things like that. But I can't imagine that it takes that long to do it. Now, as we move forward, maybe I go into the BEP and I do that, and I'm worried that what if I go in and I don't pass the test? I mean, it's possible, right? Just because I know it doesn't mean I can pass a test on it. So we'll see how that goes moving forward and what they work out training to be. It seems like once all the training manuals get done, it seems like then it has to go to legal, which then could take a year. And again, as we're another year older, everybody in the program's another year older. They got another year more of different maladies coming up and whatnot. It's just incredible. After I did that and then did the training and was kind of just shaking my head when this guy kept talking about, you see this, or you have to see this right here. You flip that switch. You see it right there. I mean, just brutal. Know your audience when you're talking to somebody. I mean, there's a group of people that have white canes on them. Now, I know some of us have sight, but some of us have no sight. When he was saying right here, see this? No, I didn't. And most of the folks didn't. But it was a nice day out. That was the thing. And so when I left, I walked back to the hotel because I had to walk. I had checked out, but I had to walk back to get my luggage. So I walked back to the hotel, and it was, like I said, a beautiful day. And I walked right in front of the Capitol building. So if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see I took a picture. I did a blind selfie, and there's a picture of Ziggy there too, waiting for me that Liz took. But it was a beautiful day, and I love the walk. Now, here, I told you earlier that they have those machines that tell you when it's safe to walk. So I walked back to the hotel, and I got distracted by that at the corner that I didn't need to cross, I needed to go right at. I heard the machine said, okay to walk, and I just kept walking, and I got across the street, and I walked about halfway down the block. I'm like, wait, this isn't right. And I realized I went a block too far, and I had to come back. So I came back across the street and went and got my bags. And again, for the third time, Desmond was there in the hotel. He was at the Starbucks counter when I went there in the morning, and he said hello to me. And when I came back in, he was right near the front door. Hey, Mr. Goldstein, how are you? I mean, he was friendly enough, but boy, oh boy. Oh my. Yeah. So I don't know that I'll stay at that hotel again. Not because of that, but various issues. You can see when there are problems. None of the public restrooms in the hotel have soap. Just some things like that. The heat was blasting. The day that I was waiting for my food, so Wednesday night, the 13th, I'm in the lounge waiting, and the heat is blasting. It was 70 degrees that day, and the heat is on full blast. And it must have been 85 to 90 degrees inside the lounge area. It was just incredible. Just things like that. It just was so quiet in there. And it just had the feel of, it just needs a makeover. It just needs a redo. It just needs a refresh, something. Not that all the staff were friendly. I mean, okay, maybe the guy was blind who checked me in and asked for my driver's license. You know, and I know you get it ingrained in your head. Here's what you ask for when somebody shows up. Because you might not want to say ID because somebody might show you their check cashing ID if there's still a thing, or some other ID, your your pool club ID, whatever it might be. But it just made me nervous the whole time there, with the food at least. You know, and if I do stay there again, I certainly won't eat there just because of that. The last thing about this trip, I had a ticket to come home at 6:40 on the 6:40 Amtrak train to Philadelphia. So I saw that there were other trains. I got done early, and I saw that there was a train at 4:30. It was about 3:45. I walked over to the train station figuring, let me see if I can get on the 4:30 train. If I can't get on that, maybe I can get on the 5:40 train. So I went up to the ticket counter, and I asked the guy, I said, hey, you know, I want to change my ticket. I'm on the 6:40. He said, where are you going? I said, Philly. He said, oh, you can get on any train to Philly. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. I said, I don't need to switch anything. He said, nope. So I just went and got on the train, and I texted Jane. I said, if I'm in Lancaster or one of the other stops along the way, some of the places I've never heard of, Mount Joy, Pennsylvania. There's other stops like small places, Elizabethtown, Downingtown, Exton, all places like that. That's why I got off there, because they made me get off. But I didn't. I showed him my ticket, told him it was for 6:40, and the guy told me it was okay to get on. He scanned it, and bing, bang, boom, I was done. I got one of the seats that I wanted. Everything was good. So that part of the trip was good. And the other funny thing, coming home from 30th Street Station, I've been using Lyft a lot more than Uber lately, because it just seems like there are more options as far as, like I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I went to a doctor's appointment at Riddle Hospital. There's an outpatient pavilion there, which is listed in the app. You know, you have a choice of 5 places at the hotel you can get dropped off at. Uber doesn't. Well, I checked Uber first, $40. I then checked Lyft, $58. I went back to Uber and picked the Uber X VIP for $40. Uber X alone without the VIP was $39 and change. So for less than $1, I upgraded. And I had Philip, this part was kind of funny. He's talking to me about going to the Apple store, and he heard about voiceover. He saw how this blind guy uses voiceover at the Apple store. And I said, what store did you go to? He said, I went to Willow Grove. I said, oh, that was Warren, right? He said, yeah, how do you know Warren? I said, Warren's the whole reason why I was in Harrisburg today in State College over the weekend. He was the one that got me into this organization and told me about it. And that was around 10 years ago. But that was my journey. It was very successful on both parts, very enlightening. And I'm really glad I went to both. And I look forward to going. Hopefully next year they'll invite me back to the, maybe not with what I had to say. I look forward to going back next year to the BEP, and hopefully they have more to say and that the training's up and running and so forth. I just want to briefly mention episode 098 of White Canes Connect. We had Steve Kelly from Hadley, we had Lachelle Smith from Salus University, and we had Pam Baccaro, who I just mentioned a few minutes ago from the BEP in Harrisburg. We did a low vision awareness episode. Check it out if you haven't already. That'll do it for episode 260 of iCantCU. Please reach out with any questions, comments, show ideas. iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, iCantCUpodcast@gmail.com, especially if you want to buy some of those raffle tickets. You can also call 646-926-6350. You've got up to 3 minutes. Leave your name and town if you do leave a voicemail. I'd love to hear from you. Questions, comments, show ideas, things you love, things you hated, tools you may use, tips you may have for other folks. That would be great. Again, 646-926-6350. As always, you can reach out on social at David Benj on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on X, which is the same thing, on Facebook, on Instagram, where you can check out those pictures from Harrisburg and and there's a picture of my ice cream from State College if you want to see that. Same thing on YouTube at David Benj. Now, if you want to watch this episode, if you say, hey, I want to see what Studio B looks like, I want to look at that ugly mug for however long this episode is going to be, youtube.com/@iCantCU, iCantCU. Remember, iCantCU sounds like a whole sentence, but it's 7 characters long. iCantCU. And you can also check out the show notes over at iCantCU.com/260. I've been having some trouble with the website. I think it's up and running now. I can't wait to move it to another host. But iCantCU.com/260, iCantCU.com/260. Again, sounds like a whole sentence, but it's only 7 characters long. iCantCU.com/260. Thank you so much for listening. Be well, stay safe, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the I Can't See You podcast with David. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. And don't forget to share the podcast with your friends.